In 1984, NASA announced that they would, for the very first time, be allowing a regular civilian to be part of a mission into space. Called the Teacher in Space program, one US teacher was going to be trained along with NASA astronauts so they could spend a week on the Challenger space shuttle giving lessons from space that would be broadcast to classrooms across America. It's so cute. High school teacher 37-year-old Krista McAuliffe beat out 11,000 applicants to get the job. And since she was the first civilian to ever go into space, there was worldwide interest in the story, and millions of people tuned in to watch the space shuttle launch on January 28th, 1986. Most of them children, since most schools in America were watching it live as part of their classroom learning. Krista McAuliffe waved to her family, said she couldn't wait to give her 2 lessons from space, that she had never been more prepared for 2 little lessons in her entire life. She gets on board, and 72 seconds after takeoff, the Challenger space shuttle exploded. Millions of children watched as America's favorite teacher, along with 6 other crew members, died right in front of them. This is just the gist of the Challenger disaster. Oh no, Kate Lever, you were like, this is a lovely, teacher.
I went on a real journey.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
No, do you know what? I was bracing myself because I knew that something, in order to make it into just the gist, I knew that something was going to happen.
They did the lessons. It was lovely.
It was lovely.
And everybody was happy.
Yeah.
And
no, this is, it's called the Challenger disaster for a reason. Take it away, me. Hello, Gistners, and welcome to Just the Gist. I'm your host, Rosie Waterland, and in this podcast, I tell entertaining stories about anything and everything, but with just the gist of what you need to know to help you sound impressive at a dinner party. Gisting in every week is the JTG production team and you guys, the Gistners. So let's get gisting. Joining me today on Just the Gist are Hayley Staveley and Kate Lever. This is our main episode. We drop minis on Wednesdays, and you can also listen to all our bonus content like breaking news through the Gister Club, which you can join on the Patreon or Apple subscriptions. Oh my God, that's the most professional I've ever done that.
Except you forgot one thing. You are our host, Rosie Waterland.
Oh, damn it.
That's not important. She got our names out, so that's
and
it.
I'm your host, Rosie Waterland. I thought that was the best I'd ever done, and I forgot my own name.
No, but you said you're the host in the
Yeah, in the recorded I'm getting there, you guys.
Yeah. I'll give it a pass.
I'm getting there. Award winner, me. Yeah. So this is just the gist of the Challenger disaster. I am now not going to bother asking Kate what you know about it because you know the emotional journey that I just took you on.
I do.
Did you know about this, Hayley?
Yes, I did.
Yeah?
Yeah, when you said that out just before, I said, oh no, I'm going to cry.
Yeah, it is really.
But it's also fascinating and a very good episode about something we love on this podcast, which is male hubris.
Yes.
Just fucking shit up.
Yeah, always. And it's also, this one's interesting to me because this is something that people say is one of those where were you when moments because all these kids watched it. Yeah. For us, we weren't allowed. Yeah, like I was, same. I was in utero in January of 1986. And so we weren't alive for it. And I had a really weird conversation with my nephew recently about 9/11, which is something to us, to me, like, because that happened when I was 14-ish. Yeah, 2001, 14. Like, I just assume everybody knows about that. And he asked me if I was going to do a Just the Gist on 9/11. To me, I was like, well, that was 5 years ago. Like, like he was born in the 20-teens. To him, it is just a thing that is in the past and he doesn't know about. And I think the Challenger disaster for a lot of people was that thing that like, well, everybody knows about that, but we didn't, like, it wasn't a thing for us on our, it's not a cultural touchstone. Kate didn't
Clearly
even know
not
about
for
it.
me.
Like, but it was at the time like this huge, like an international, just huge, that story that dominated the news for like 2 years.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
the element of space gives it newsworthiness forever.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, we'll get into that because like technically space was kind of boring at the time, which is why they did this teacher in space program to get people interested again. So then, you know, there was a year of like media just surrounding her learning to be an astronaut. And then like a year after or 2 years after, there was like the investigations and the inquiries and the who to blame, which is basically all the men involved. So it was, yeah, it's just one of those huge stories that for us, we were born just a little too late, but for people who are, you know, the right age, this is something that they never forget.
And the big space story of our generation is that Katy Perry went into orbit.
Yeah,
I hate us.
I know, I hate us.
I feel like that's very indicative of our entire time.
hate us. I know. So, yeah, I guess we'll start there. Like I just said, in the 1980s, space travel was pretty lame. Like it hadn't been long since the 60s when it was literally like this coming together of humankind to like conquer the new frontier of space, and we went to the moon, and it was like this incredible feat of humanity that brought us all together, and it was exciting, and to be an astronaut was like to be American royalty. And then it was like, well, we're just kind of the moon again and again and again. Well, we've been to the moon a few times, and then Nixon decided that going to Mars was dumb and cost too much money, so that program got shafted, and it was like, well, come on, NASA, show us something more interesting. We've seen the moon now, because you know what people are like. So it started to get pretty it wasn't newsworthy. Space anymore wasn't newsworthy.
Once again, The Simpsons nailed this.
Yes, they did. Yeah, The Simpsons got it. Like, not to diminish the severity and awfulness of Krista McAuliffe losing her life by comparing it to The Simpsons, but the episode they did where Homer goes to space is very similar to what happened in this situation. Like, that's why they did it. Yeah,
they're ruffled.
Yeah.
To put this incident in my sort of mental timeline, I was just wondering whether this came before or after NASA sank a whole bunch of money into the research of teaching dolphins the English language.
After. This came after.
Okay.
Yes.
So another in the line of great decisions.
Yeah, this came after. So, you know, in the 80s, they were in the middle of this program called the Space Shuttle program. So they had invented this thing called the Space Shuttle, which was kind of like more like a plane, like it flies horizontal and it looks like a plane. It gets up to space by having rockets attached to it to like shoot it up. And then the rockets detach and it goes into space. So it was kind of like this thing that was going to make space travel hopefully one day easier, like more common, possibly for just regular people like Katy Perry.
Holiday destination.
Yeah, so they had launched this space shuttle thinking, well, this will be the thing that'll get everyone back. And everyone was just kind of like, that's just a different shaped rocket. Like to NASA nerds, it was this huge deal. And everyone else was like, you know, okay, guys. So they would
should have painted it pink or something.
Yeah, like it was just, it wasn't the front page news that NASA was anticipating it was going to be. And the space shuttle, you know, it does go into space a lot more often, and it also is like reusable. So there's like this one space shuttle, the rockets that they attach to it to send it up there, they break off and then they're gone. But in the past, rockets had been a like one and done situation. This space shuttle was like a plane that they could use again and again and again.
Like theoretically, though, if it didn't explode.
Well, yeah, until it exploded. Yeah. So they, you know, they could use it more often because it wasn't like you invest all this money into this one spaceship and then you go do the thing and then that's it. Like they were going to space, like they were hoping to get to a point where they could send the space shuttle up like 50 times a year, like once a week. But it was
rechargeable.
Yeah, and it was just doing boring space things though. Like it wasn't
seeing if ants could be trained to sort tiny screws.
Stuff like that. Exactly. All of that kind of stuff. And nothing like, you know, going on the moon or anything exciting. There was also, in order to sort of fund it all, boring stuff like big companies could buy space on the space shuttle, and they would take up a satellite for them to NBC wants a satellite in space. Oh, we'll pay the space shuttle $1 million to. So it became a bit of a commercial endeavor. It was boring. It's not news. It's just, it's not news. It's this government program and it's doing boring stuff, so no one cares. So I don't know if it was a PR person or what, but someone at NASA was like, let's send a regular person into space. Like, that'll make it interesting. That'll kick things up a notch. And they decide that the best kind of person to send is a teacher. Like, of course, a teacher. You can get kids involved. Schools, we can make them watch it. So
get to the next generation.
Yeah, so they announced in 1984 the Teacher in Space program, and it was a national competition to find a teacher, and then they would train them as an astronaut and send them into space. And it was going to be the first ever regular person in space. So it was actually a big deal. Technically, they weren't going to be an astronaut. I mean, this is kind of the boring stuff that NASA doesn't understand, people don't find interesting. And they're like, well, actually, they're a payload specialist. They're going to be an astronaut. But essentially, on space shuttle missions or spaceship missions, there are astronauts and they are the actual trained space travel people. Then there are also people called payload specialists who are experts in their field. So they haven't trained to be an astronaut their whole lives, but they have a particular skill that the trip needs. So they get training so they can go. So, it'd be like a physicist knows super smart things, or the expert who knows how to train the ants to do the stuff. It's
or a pop star.
Or a pop star, yeah, or Oprah's best friend. So, I think they were called payload specialists
Well,
on
no
the
one told Katy
Lady
Perry
in
because
Space.
I'm pretty sure she calls herself an astronaut.
So the astronauts know how to press all the buttons and stuff.
Yeah.
So we're the payload specialists of Just the Gist, and James is the astronaut.
Yeah, James is the astronaut and all of us are the payload specialists. Exactly. The astronauts fly the shuttle. They've trained usually in the military. They're usually pilots, regular pilots, and then they train for years and years to know how to work the ship and do all of that. The payload specialists get trained in how to be in space and what to do in an emergency or whatever, but they're not there to they're technically not an astronaut, but it's NASA, just please understand how to sell this and call her an astronaut.
Or they should have just come up with a cooler name.
Then payload specialist.
Yeah.
I know.
Come on.
I
Sounds
know.
like a little bit sexual somehow.
It's the word payload.
Load. Yeah,
the word load.
Yeah.
Oh
load.
no.
I don't know.
I hadn't thought of that, but
would kids be listening to this episode? In which case,
load is not a sexual word.
no,
children.
I don't.
Okay.
Okay, so this plan to get people interested in NASA and space again, even though they insisted on calling her a payload specialist, it worked. The Teacher in Space program gets people so effing psyched. It becomes this competition that everyone in America is obsessed with. It's like a regular person gets to go to space, seriously. And there were, like I said, 11,000 applicants, and eventually 10 finalists were chosen. And this is all huge news. It's like, Australian Idol, but space, but astronaut Idol,
Would
basically.
you guys enter?
No, I would not want to go to space.
I don't think space is any of our business.
No.
Just like the very depths of the sea.
Yeah.
That is not my business.
I love space, love looking at it and learning about it and stuff. But the idea of being in a space shuttle, the fuck right off. No,
Absolutely
thank you.
No.
Just bury me alive.
Yeah,
same shit.
no, I don't. There's something about just endless expanse that makes me anxious, but also I could not be around people and have to socialize with them. Yeah,
it's all right. They don't know how to do it anyway.
But it's why going into the Big Brother house or something is my worst nightmare, because I'm someone who needs my space. I need my shows.
Alone time.
I need alone time. And I could not live that closely with people for.
That's why I'm not a parent.
Yeah.
Because I need the alone time.
No, right.
And I need people to not be in my personal space. Otherwise, just in order to survive.
No, I'm the same. Even since we got the puppy, there have been times when I've been so shitty and I've been like, James, Pocket just won't leave me alone. Why doesn't he understand that I need my alone time? And James is like, Rosie,
He's a dog.
it was a smart idea that we decided to do this instead of get children.
I hate both of you. I'm constantly overstimulated.
I don't know. Yeah, I would not be able to handle it, bro. I don't know how. So, it's basically like Astronaut Idol, and the 10 finalists are chosen. It's like a big news thing. People are into it. They then have to go to the Johnson Space Center, which is where they train astronauts, and they have to go through all the medical tests and like all kinds of tests. They have to put together the lessons that they're going to like teach in space. They are basically getting put through all these like challenges and whatever in order, like in Men in Black when Will Smith goes into the place and him and a whole bunch of other guys have to, it's kind of like that, but it's like a week long and there's cameras there the whole time. So it's all
like
filmed.
Early reality TV.
Yeah, it is kind of. It's all filmed and like, and people really get behind certain candidates because it's all filmed. They like, everyone has their favorite and pretty much everyone's favorite. And people say to this day, it was obvious from the start that Krista McAuliffe was going to win. Like she was going to win. She was a great teacher, obviously, but she was also just like a really lovely person. She has a really lovely, friendly face. She's infectious. She's like charismatic. And I think, NASA understands that not only is this person going into space, but they're also going to have to do a lot of television, including the live lessons they're doing via satellite from space. They're going to be doing a lot of PR. They're going to become very famous. They're going to be a face for NASA. So they needed an all-rounder, like someone who's smart enough to do all the astronaut stuff, but also someone who's camera ready and well-spoken in terms of like media trained and all that kind of stuff, but also just lovely and likable, charismatic enough to become what they're looking for is America's teacher, America's
Poster
favorite
child
teacher,
for the new frontier of space travel. How many finalists are in this Hunger Games? And
there's 10.
10.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Of 11,000, it got narrowed down to a couple hundred and then there was some more. And then this final test sort of Hunger Games thing at NASA was, 10. I'm just getting a picture to show you of Krista.
Oh, good. So we can become emotionally attached to her.
Yeah. So this is her here in a little press conference, little picture
she's
of her.
adorable straight away.
She's adorable.
Yeah.
She's 37. She's married. She's got 2 little kids. One's 10, one's 6. NASA could not have found a more perfect candidate. So everyone said, even before they were told who was going to go. So it was initially going to be announced live, like, America's Next Top Model or something, by George Bush, who was senior, who was vice president at the time. But the 10 of them got together and sort of said, no, we're not doing that. Like we've been here training for 2 weeks. We all really care about each other. We all really want this. We can't go into a tiny room filled with press with the vice president and find out that information on camera. Like you need to tell us first. And so they were told in the little side room before they went on TV to have it announced that Krista had won. And then there was also like a backup, like an understudy, this other woman who, if Krista got sick or whatever, she was the backup. So
Krista, by the way, also for those who cannot see the picture, has the perfect 1980s hair.
she does. It's like that curly perm, but like, how do you describe it? It's like almost mullet-like, but not mullet-like. It's, I don't know. She just has a perfect 80s curly hair. Yeah. And she just looks friendly and lovely. She's beautiful, but not in a like
like polished way, like in a Girl Next Door.
She's very Girl Next Door.
In your
She's
wholesome
perfect.
American
She's
teacher
perfect.
kind of way.
Exactly. She's perfect. So she's chosen in 1985 and instantly becomes just massively famous. She did every talk show. She's on the cover of every magazine. She becomes America's sweetheart, truly. Like it was everything NASA wanted. She has to go to the training center for about a year. So she's going to be there almost full time for quite a while. So there are cameras at her house sort of filming her and her kids and her husband like before she has to go away to the training center to like make her dreams come true.
Is she being paid? handsomely?
That's a good question.
Yeah, because
I'm
teachers
sure
aren't
she
paid
would
very
be.
much, so maybe that's why some of them wanted to go to space.
I'm sure she'd be getting paid. And I mean, at least she was on the cover of like cereal boxes and stuff. So I'm hoping there was someone in her corner
Getting that
she would
advertising
have got
money.
no money at all.
Yeah,
of
I
that.
don't think she
would
would
have
have
been given some shitty salary.
Yeah, from NASA. I think so.
They
Because it
would
was
have been
all
like,
about like
it's
the
all about the
dream of doing
exposure.
it. Yeah, it's the dream of doing it. You're lucky to be doing it kind of thing. There's this really cute and in hindsight heartbreaking footage before Krista is leaving to go to her training year-long camp. Her little daughter Caroline, who's 6, is just having none of the cameras being there, like is just looking sulky and sad the whole time, like won't fake it for the cameras. And it's quite sweet. Like there's lots of footage of Krista kind of pulling her aside and saying, I know you're going to miss mummy, but I'm doing this important thing. And she has this like little stuffed frog that she's like, I'm going to wave the frog during my lessons and you know that that's just for you, like all this cute little stuff. And then the journalist asks Caroline like, oh, why are you sad? And she says, I don't want her to go in space. I just want her to stay around my house. Oh, I know. She doesn't want her to go. I
Why
know.
couldn't they all just like relocate together and she could just...
People have lives, and I mean, her husband was taking care of them. She was not gone for a year, like, and they don't see her, but she's, off doing this
They were
kind
in
of full-time
school.
thing. And so she's training for almost a year leading up to the big Challenger launch. They're meant to go into space for, I think it's about 6 days, like, so it's not a super long time. And even though nobody had cared about space shuttle launches in like the previous, especially 5 years, this one people cared about. Like there was a lot of excitement over this Challenger like trip. And it's interesting because there's a huge myth with the Challenger explosion that kind of like how we were talking before about how we all know where we were when we were like 9/11, we were watching, and a lot of people say like they know where they were when they were watching the Challenger footage. But actually like it wasn't most people weren't watching it live because everyone was at work, and like it was like it was at about 11 o'clock in the morning. So the main people watching it live were kids, like little kids mostly. Yeah, because even though she was a high school teacher, the lessons were framed for like younger kids, like primary school age kids. Most people were like going to watch it on the news that night or whatever, but it was mainly kids who were watching it all live. NASA had actually sent out like a whole bunch of satellite dishes to a whole bunch of schools just so they could watch it. And then there were news crews at a lot of schools watching the kids watch it. Particularly there was a big news crew at Krista McAuliffe's high school that she was a teacher at. And like all the high school students have like party hats and streamers and balloons and everyone's excited. It's like, it's a big deal for a lot of kids. So on the day of the launch, it is unseasonably cold for Florida, which is where they're launching from, which is, kind of like Australia in a sense, like Brisbane or Sydney, in that even when it's winter here, it's like, what's winter?
It's not like snowing and frost.
Yeah, it's like, 20 degrees. Like, but like, so Florida isn't a place where it really gets super cold even in winter. But on this night, it had been -8 degrees overnight. And even by the morning, it was still like -6. And they even pushed back by a couple of hours because there were icicles literally like on the space shuttle that they were like, we've not done it in cold like this before. Normally with space launches, you're worried about like heat and that kind of problems with heat and the fire and the rocket fuel. And so this was something that like they hadn't really anticipated it being this cold, and they had no experience in launching in this kind of cold. And they probably would have delayed, but they had already delayed twice. So they delayed once because there was meant to be really bad weather, and like Vice President George Bush had come and everyone was like there waiting for it to happen. And then they were like, sorry, there's probably going to be really bad weather. And so they called it off, but then it actually wasn't bad weather. And they were like, oh my God, we could have gone. And then the second time, actually, they got so far as like onto the space shuttle strapped in, and then there was a problem bolting the door shut. And so they're all in there, and for ages they're trying to figure out like how to get this, like how to troubleshoot this door. And they bring in like all these power tools that they can only operate with batteries because like you can't have electricity around all the rocket fuel and stuff. They get out there and like the power tools have the batteries aren't charged or whatever. Like, so then they have none of the batteries. And then like people watching said it was really sort of like a little off-putting, because then at one point these guys, they just like bring out a hacksaw and they're just like hacking at this bolt, because it was like this dodgy bolt that they needed to put a fresh bolt in. And this like people were like, you're sort of thinking like, this is NASA? And that's, I thought NASA would have like a whiz bang pop solution for just these two guys with a hacksaw. So by the time it took them so long to get this dodgy bolt out to put in a fresh one, that then they missed their launch window and the weather turned, so they couldn't do it then. So then, you know, she had gone in, been strapped in and then had to come out. And so this third time, I think there was pressure of like, we've already delayed twice. The State of the Union was that night, which is a big speech the president does every year to sort of tell the union the state of their union. So I think there was a bit of pressure to be like, and we did this launch today was part of it. So there was, you know, there are some people who say like they should have delayed, and like them deciding not to was because of publicity reasons. Other people contest that like there was no reason for us to think it was going to be bad anyway. But there's like conflicting thoughts about the delay, but there certainly was pressure not to, because there'd been 2 failed launches and there was so much media around this. So many, like people were finally watching them and interested in them, and they were like, we need to do something interesting.
We need to actually launch the thing.
The thing that needs to go up into the thing.
How unsettling though to have been strapped in twice.
I know.
And also because you have just enough information to make it extra scary, but not enough to alleviate any of your fears.
Yeah.
Like, I
know.
Because if that happened on like a roller coaster or something, I'd be like, I'm not getting back on.
Yeah. And also like they did not think they were going to be going either, because Captain Dick Scobie, who was an experienced astronaut.
What a name.
I know. I was about Dick Scobie. And all the people in all the documentaries and stuff, I guess it was his nickname. They all call him Scobe. There's like Scobe. Yeah, but Captain Dick Scobie was an experienced astronaut, and in the week before a launch, all the astronauts who were going up on the trip, or the payload specialists, and their families come and stay. They have this beach house, and it's like this tradition where they all go and hang out at this beach house and like have a barbecue, spend time together. It's quite
bonding,
eerie when you think about it, like because the actual reason is this is very dangerous and you might all die. So have a nice time together, you know. So all their families had been like hanging out, getting close at this beach house, and they'd had the 2 sort of delayed launches. And because it was so cold, Dick Scobie had said to everyone the night before, oh, we are not launching tomorrow. Trust me, it's too cold. Like that's not going to happen. So everyone was kind of like, didn't have the adrenaline of like, oh, we're going tomorrow, because he was like, there's no way we're going. So no one was really expecting it. And then all of a sudden they were like, no, we're pushing it back to like 11 a.m., but we're doing it. We're going. Like we are going today. So everyone in Krista McCaulife's family is at the launch site in Florida. Like everyone in all the astronauts and payload specialist families are there. It's her and 6 other people. You know, her parents are there, her like siblings are there, her husband, her kids, everyone's there. All the teachers who had been in the final 10 were there. All the families of the crew members who had all bonded, they were all there together. And there were so many news crews. And there were so many news crews set up to film the actual launch, but also just on particularly her family's faces, like on her parents, on it, like because they wanted the footage of her family and her kids being like, hooray! Like, so there are just cameras on them the whole time. And at first, the launch seems normal. The space shuttle lifts off at 11:38 in the morning. Mission Control says to Captain Scobie, go at throttle up. And he replied, Roger, go at throttle up. And that's the last thing anyone heard from anything on the Challenger. 73 seconds after liftoff, the Challenger appears to just explode in the sky. There's just this huge like smoke bomb, and then pieces start like whizzing away from each other. Like the shuttle was sort of breaking apart and bits were out of control. And everyone on the ground is very confused because the cameras are on them, and particularly with Krista's family, they're not experienced like families of space people. So to them, they're like, oh, is this meant to happen? Like, is that because part of it is, you know, the rocket launchers help it go up and then the rocket launchers break off. And so they were like, oh, is that the rocket launchers coming off? Like people are sort of looking around like, what's going on? Mission Control at first are stunned because there's all footage of them as well, because that's not because of media attention either. That's because NASA does have cameras on every single angle of the mission control in case anything goes wrong, because they need to be able to like go back, kind of like a black box almost. So like the moment it just suddenly explodes, like the faces of the guys in mission control, they're literally just like this. Like, for those of you listening, I'm just like staring blankly. Like they're in shock. Like it's almost like they freeze. They all freeze for a sec. They're all like, what?
I just wouldn't be sure you were seeing what
Yeah.
you were seeing.
And they sort of blink. This one guy who was the guy communicating with the space shuttle, he is just like blinking. Like, and then he just, you can see his face kind of be like, oh my God, like this is bad. So like Mission Control is confused. He starts trying to communicate with the Challenger. They're not getting anything. They're hoping that maybe like the part of the ship that the crew is in, if it looks like things have broken apart, they're like, maybe that part has broken off, and like Dick Scobie is very experienced. He will know like if anyone's going to get them safely down into, because they do it by the ocean, because like so they'll crash in the ocean. Like he might be able to do that, but within minutes it was like very obvious it wasn't survivable.
Oh, I thought there was a bit longer of a. I thought they
For
thought they
people,
saw
for the NASA people,
right,
it was
they
obvious.
knew, right.
So the worst confusion is among the people watching, because they don't really get it. And I mean, like the footage that is tattooed on my brain watching all of this stuff is Krista McAuliffe's parents, because there is a camera right on them and they're both looking up. They're both so excited. And then it happens and they both kind of go, oh. And her mum is kind of looking around like, was that meant to have happened? And they're looking at each other, her mum and dad, like, is that? And they're looking up. And then it's just like a minute of footage where you can see them sort of slowly realizing, did we just watch our daughter die? Like what is this? I'll show you this bit of footage of the shuttle like basically taking off when this happens.
So the 25th Space Shuttle mission is now on the way after more delays than NASA cares to count. This morning, it looked as though they were not going to be able to get off.
1 minute, 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7 nautical miles.
But watching that footage, you can completely understand how you would think that was part of what was meant to happen. Because
Yes.
you're watching like a huge plume of smoke and there's fire in the sky.
And you know
can't tell
some
what's
bits are meant to break
happening.
off. So you're like, okay.
And it looks like there's a thing that's being propelled still. So you're like, oh, that's the thing going off.
Yeah.
And maybe they're in the thing and they're safe in the thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like, plus also there's that thing, part of your brain that is obviously trying to protect you from the truth.
Yes.
And you don't understand what's happening, but there's another layer of not wanting to understand what's happening.
Yes, and that's certainly the case with not just Krista McAuliffe's family, but all the crew members' family, except for probably the Captain Dick Scobie, who I should say his full name is Francis Scobie, but everyone calls him Dick Scobie and all the things. So it was a very 60s thing to do, right? People getting nicknamed Dick.
Yeah, I feel like it was too.
No, it was. They did.
Yeah,
so I've just been calling him that because everyone in all the documentaries, but she knew, I think. But
The wife?
I think she sort of knew. But it's just like I only showed you a bit of that footage then, like it explodes and then everyone's like, huh? But the cameras just stayed on her parents. Like the cameras all, I mean, I get it. If you were a news person there, you'd be like, swing around, get on her family and do not move the camera off them. Like it sounds morbid, but that is what a news person would do.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
also even in that moment, they're thinking, ethically, let's go with the parents instead of zooming in on the kids for the whole time.
There is footage of the kid. There's footage of everyone there, but yeah, it was, there's also just all this awful footage because all these news crews had been at schools all over the country to film the kids watching it. There were some, like, kids got really confused. Some teachers just, like, turned it off. Other teachers started sort of trying to turn it into a lesson. Like, remember when we had to go to school the day after 9/11 and every class we had, teachers were like, do you guys want to talk about it? And you so some teachers started doing that. The worst though is the high school where she was a teacher.
Yeah.
Like they all have party hats on and they're all holding balloons and like, and they all are just, they're in disbelief. They look kind of devastated. You can hear a teacher say to the like camera crew there, can you leave? Like this isn't, but the camera crew's like, I don't think so. No. So witnesses say like there's a lot of confusion at the launch site. No one really knows. Dick Scobie's wife is saying, look, if anyone can get them down, like he will. But then someone just comes over the loudspeaker at the launch site where everyone's watching and says the shuttle has exploded. And so then everyone's like, oh my God, this is really bad. Because up until then it was just sort of confusion and like, did something go wrong? Well, if it did, it's sure, I mean, okay. And other people were like, but did something go wrong? But when someone just says over the loudspeaker, we can confirm the shuttle has exploded.
Also exploded is like, there's no.
Right?
It's not an ambivalent kind of.
Yeah.
The families
Ambiguous,
all
I mean.
do still have hope though. Like you were saying, Kate, they were just like, you can't. You have to tell yourself like something will happen. Like one of the crew members' wives said, I was convinced, no, they'll find them like floating in the sea like a kilometre away or something. Like they will be fine. Like they're going to be fine. And so all the families get taken into a private room and it's not long after it happens, like within half an hour, that the head of NASA comes to the room and confirms to them we're not exactly sure what has happened, but we do know that it wasn't survivable. So none of them will be alive. So the people who died on the Challenger were the captain, Francis Scobie. Michael J. Smith was the pilot. Ronald McNair was a mission specialist. Ellison Onizuka was a mission specialist. Judith Resnick was a mission specialist. Gregory Jarvis was a payload specialist, and Krista McAuliffe is listed as payload specialist and teacher. And, by that afternoon, it's confirmed that they are all dead. That night, President Reagan, who had been meant to give the State of the Union, like I said, they cancel that and instead he gives a speech from his office, which becomes one of the most famous presidential speeches of all time, particularly because of this last bit that he says. He says, "The crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger honoured us by the manner in which they lived their lives. We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them this morning as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God." Yeah. And he's, he was an actor. He pulled it off. It was, it was one of those, I just got like the shivers.
Yes.
It was one of those TV moments that everybody tuned in to watch the president give a speech about what had happened that day. So it was like a lot of pressure to get it right, and it was beautifully written and beautifully delivered, whatever you think of Ronald Reagan.
And turned around very quickly.
Yes. So what happened? Like what happened? First of all, it wasn't actually an explosion. It wasn't an explosion. There was a lot of vapor, like air and hydrogen together, like made all the smoke when the shuttle broke apart. So that made it look like an explosion. And news shows that night, even because there is this like what looks like an explosion, but there's no explosion sound, a whole lot of news shows that night added in explosion sound effects because it didn't make sense to people. Like it was like watching it, they were like, this doesn't make sense. And they assumed it was an explosion and they were like, so they put the sound in. And so now it can be quite hard to find at least news footage from the time without this big explosion sound.
Weird.
Because like there is certainly a big sound because it's like a big shuttle breaking apart. But a lot of shows added this explosion sound. So
That's nuts.
Imagine the meetings to decide that.
I mean,
Can we? Should we?
there's a great Netflix documentary called what is it? What is it actually called? Challenger, the Final Flight. And it's a 4-part documentary. And they do interview like media people about that day. And it was just like, like stay on the families and find some specialists to tell us what could have gone wrong. And like, we need to add some sound to that because that looks weird. And they just,
But that's like part of the story. Like that's why there was all this confusion and why people weren't sure what happened.
Yeah.
And, so why change the...
It's probably too soon for them to fully understand all of that.
They assumed it was an explosion and they were like, well, people are going to think that we don't have the best footage if we don't have sound. So like just put the sound, news is a weird business.
Well, you see, this is why if I have ever described myself as a journalist, I mean journalist in like not this sense at all.
Yeah.
This is why I could never be this type of journalist.
Like package
It's
the news. I never. I'm not a journalist. I'm a writer. Like I studied creative writing. We did period blood art in my degree, so I am not a journalist. So. Essentially, the shuttle broke apart. There was no explosion. But when you hear how the crew died, you kind of wish it had been an explosion.
Oh, Rosie, I thought we'd already done the worst of it, but there's more to come.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a lot of sciencey engineering. I don't even know the right words. What is it called? Engineering for rocket building, I guess.
Yeah, rocket engineers.
Rocket engineers, exactly. This is just the gist.
I was just trying
Brain
to remember.
surgery.
Not rocket science.
It's not rocket science.
This is
rocket
this
science.
is, and this is just the gist. So I'm not going to go into like
So what is
major
rocket
details.
science?
I'm not going to go into major details or like of how this thing is structurally put together or whatever. But I'll tell you like the main gist of this. So essentially, there is this thing called an O-ring, which is like a rubber band, like a really thick industrial-sized rubber band that like fuses things together that need to be fused together. And they're made of rubber so they can like stretch around certain things and things can also have a bit of flex inside them. They're essentially like a watertight rubber band. So anything that no air or water or anything you want to get through, they use this rubber thing called an O-ring. And there's O-rings on this rocket and there is a big O-ring connecting like two big bits of it together. And these O-rings get weaker in cold temperatures. It like does something to the structural integrity of the O-ring. And apparently that morning there was like a strong like sort of gust of wind when the shuttle was on the tarmac.
Yeah. Sure. Launch pad.
Launch pad, exactly. And that like just sort of popped a little tiny tear in the seal. Like it just popped something a little because it was already sort of compromised from the cold. And when that seal got just the tiniest bit compromised, all this pressurized burning gas from inside the rocket suddenly started bursting out of that tiny, tiny little hole. And because of like physics or whatever, and everything in a rocket launch needs to be exactly correct, this gas and sort of flame, because it's like rocket fuel, starts like coming out of this tiny hole. Everything becomes unbalanced and it messes with like the aerodynamics. And then it just, everything starts to lose pressure and things are working harder than they need to. And it's kind of like when you shake up a bottle of Coke and then you turn the lid even the tiniest millimeter, it just goes and the bottle starts like whizzing around. That's essentially what happens. It's just this like rubber O-ring gets a tiny little tear in it and then it just like and like just too much pressure. and everything's spinning until it's all released. So that's kind of what it was. And because the shuttle broke apart, and you can see in footage of it, like there's these smoke plumes in the air of things like whizzing around, because it is kind of like, you know, even when you
Like letting go of a balloon.
and it goes,
whoopee cushion.
that's kind of what's happening with all like the pressure and stuff. And because it like is just all that vapor and everything wasn't from an explosion, it was from just sort of things breaking. It's believed that the 2 minutes and 45 seconds it took for the Challenger, like the actual rocket part that the crew were inside, to fall from the sky, because they were 12 kilometers up when this happened. It took 2 minutes and 45 seconds for the rocket to fall down to the ocean. And it's believed that the crew were inside and they were alive that whole time. So they didn't die instantly from an explosion, which they would have had it been an explosion. They actually died from the impact of hitting the water when their like little cabin that they were in the shuttle fell 12 kilometers and hit the ocean.
And they had nearly 3 minutes to prepare for that.
Yeah, so it's been debated whether or not they were conscious, because like the air pressure of the falling shuttle, some people say it would have knocked them out, but most NASA officials assume that they were alive for a couple of alive and conscious for a couple of reasons. One is because a bunch of the crew had activated their emergency breathing masks, so that indicates that they were conscious to do that. And there was also not the damage inside the cabin that they would expect from a fast drop in air pressure. So that indicates that the air pressure dropped slowly, which means they would have been conscious until the moment of impact. And their space shuttle cabin falling from that height into the ocean would have hit the water with more force than a train crash. So it was 2 minutes and 45 seconds of them falling, most likely alive and conscious and knowing.
Just long enough to understand what's about to happen.
Yeah. And then dying instantly on impact when you hit the ocean with that kind of force. The lead accident investigator, a guy from NASA called Robert Overmeyer, later said, "I not only flew with Dick Scobie, we owned a plane together, and I know Scobe did everything he could to save this crew. Scobe fought for any and every edge to survive. He flew that ship without wings all the way down. They were alive." So he thinks he would have been in there just trying anything to get it flying or whatever. I don't even know what the contingencies were. What can you do at that point? So on March 7, the crew cabin was found on the ocean floor with all 7 crew inside. And it happened on January 28. So they were looking
Oh, wow.
for a while. Yeah. The last debris found was 2 large pieces of the shuttle that washed up on a beach 11 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
What
I
a
guess-
find.
Yeah.
You'd be like, surely
Whoa,
not.
I know, yeah.
I guess the ocean is really, really big.
The ocean is really big, Kate Lever.
The look on your face when you said that, like you just
Yeah.
considered that for the first time.
The fact that
ocean
it could be
is
traveling
really
in-
big.
for 11 years and then come up on the shore.
I mean, that reminds me of when James and I were traveling around the country on our road trip. And when you're out in the outback in the mining towns, there are like huge like tractors and tractors or like earth movers, because it's all the equipment is so huge. It's like you stand next to the wheel of one of these things and it's like 2 stories high or whatever. And we were driving along the highway and like we were driving past some massive mining thing, and I just went, things are big, aren't they? And now it's James and I say that all the time now. Like, we'll just be like, things are big, aren't they? That's
like the ocean.
The ocean's big,
So
isn't
big,
it?
isn't it?
The ocean's
You know what else is big?
isn't
Space.
it? Yes, space is big. The
Huge.
ocean's big.
Oh, wow.
It makes me
things.
believe, what's that plane, MH370 or whatever?
yeah, yeah.
That's, it's there somewhere. It's just the ocean's effing big.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And I love during COVID when Courtney Love would get like really drunk at night and bored and just was on Twitter all the time, because she was on the website where you can just look through footage of like radar footage of the ocean, and she kept convincing herself she was finding MH370. She's like, she'd sit in front of her computer for like 5 hours being like, I think I see something on the radar. But I was like, wow, that's a way to pass the
Do you
time.
know what? Like, I would believe anything these days.
Yeah.
If Courtney Love was the one to find it, I would not be surprised.
That is as believable as Katy Perry being one of the
Going to
first
space.
women civilians in space. So these are the times we live in.
I hope she's still looking.
Yeah,
Courtney.
me too. I hope she is.
Maybe that's what she's up to these
Yeah,
days.
I swear to God, the headline's going to break that Courtney Love found MH370. Oh, okay. Sorry. This is sorry.
We needed the little comic
We
relief.
did. We actually needed
the
that.
tension was building. We
needed
to-
that.
And do you know what? So will the listeners.
Yes,
They
we
will
needed.
also need
We all
that
needed
little
that, you
laugh.
guys.
We
Yes.
needed it.
Yep. So in the aftermath of this, there were obviously like just investigations on investigations on investigations. It did come to sort of, people came to the conclusion that it all happened because the O-ring failed, because it had been unusually cold in Florida the previous night and morning. But it wasn't just the cold. Like, investigations found that standards had been getting pretty lax at NASA for quite a long time. Like, for example, they had noticed in a few shuttle trips in a couple of years previously that occasionally when the shuttle came back, the O-ring was like damaged or like compromised or had been weakened or whatever. And they noted it and like changed the O-ring seal, but they were like, well, we don't know why that's happening. Like, no one ever really, it wasn't, and there were some people on the day who were saying like the cold affects the O-rings. Like, we can't do this. There was a big meeting between a whole bunch of different departments the night before the launch, and they were debating whether or not to launch. And there were competing interests of the people who were just space engineers saying like, I don't care about the PR of this or the business of this or the money of this. We know that the O-rings get damaged. We think it's probably the cold. We also know that we've never launched in cold like this before. We should not launch.
Yeah, this is not the one.
Yeah, this is not the one because like you're the ones who chucked this teacher on here. I mean, that in fact has been annoying to us because we're just nerdy scientists who want to do our thing and like, but then, there were higher ups who had a lot of reasons to push forward with the launch like that I listed before. And there was also just money concerns when it came to, corporate interests booking like space on these shuttle trips. And so that was factoring into it all. I think also decisions had started shifting in the decade prior, from NASA's heyday in the 60s, late 60s, and leading up to now in the mid 80s. The standards and priorities at NASA had been shifting from just straight up safety and exploration because it was a thing that everybody was obsessed with. The government was obsessed with. They basically had unlimited funds from the government to do whatever space exploration they wanted. Then when it became less of a public priority and people were like, people are homeless and hungry, stop sending rockets to the moon. So, the government stopped giving them so much cash, so they needed to seek corporate funding. And so that meant they had a lot of pressure on them to meet sort of corporate interests rather than just governmental, standards for this is a service for the greater good and for all of us, and we're exploring. And it became like, well, this company is funding this or building this, so we need to do X. Like, basically a lot of men who had been, and I say men because it is mostly, almost all men, who had been employed by NASA during its heyday as astronauts, as scientists, as engineers who were just interested in space stuff, suddenly were expected to act like managers and like having to deal with sort of corporate or financial interests and decisions and priorities over just the science and the boring stuff that they care about, like safety, and saying, I know it's very expensive to delay this 5 times, but like, that's what you got to do. And then
a lot worse if we don't delay it.
But then there's like a non-science manager who's like, yeah, but what if we just did it? Like, you know what I mean? So NASA had actually lost a lot of its like excellent staff because they had all left the company because NASA didn't have the money to pay a lot of the like best people, the best salaries. So all the best people were going to other, you know, like companies or government agencies, whatever, where they could get paid well. So NASA had kind of ended up with a lot of like B grade people because that's all they could afford. But the A grade people who were still there were not like corporate managers. They were scientists and engineers, and they're now being expected to like deal in all this corporate stuff with all these like expectations of them that they're like, I don't like.
This stuff is not my strength. Like,
but
just
that's sort
let
of
me do the calculations.
Yeah, let me do the beep boops.
And also I've done the beep boops, and the beep boops say don't go to space today.
And you're saying, but the ka-ching ka-ching means we have to. Like that's
Beep boop Trump.
That's
ching,
about that's about as just the gist as I can make it. So essentially, after all these investigations, it was found that like yes, the O-ring was like the specific thing that you know, caused the accident that day, but it was also like almost a decade's worth of just standards slowly lowering, and like a lot of like you said at the start, Hayley, like a lot of men with hubris who came in to work with NASA who weren't scientists, who weren't engineers, who were like, yeah, but if we think about the money and if we think about, you know, making this exciting business, then, and it's like, this isn't a business, it's science, you know?
There's a lot of very OceanGate-y stuff about
It
all
is.
of this.
It is. It's it's a lot of very OceanGate-y stuff, which there's a great episode of the podcast You're Wrong About.
You're going to say just the gist.
No, there is.
Great episode.
The early days of You're Wrong About, when it was still Michael Hobbs and Sarah Marshall together, and they do an episode on the Challenger. I listened to it again for this research, and this is essentially what always happens when things that are government agencies or government programs are privatized, or at least private interests are brought into it. Like disaster always happens. Disaster always happens. Like how can you bring private corporate interest into NASA?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not only the like, because, you know, there was a separate company that built the rocket ship, like that had been outsourced. And so that company had a lot of the decision making. And, you know, when they were trying to blame someone, you know, NASA was trying to totally blame that company, saying, well, they built it, they didn't tell us, they should have had data on the O-rings or whatever. But then there were a lot of higher ups at NASA who, like, the company says, no, we were trying to tell them don't go. And NASA were like, but we've got this teacher on there and there's all these people watching and we've already delayed 2 times. So no one could ever really agree on who, you know, was the one. But it was basically just like 10 years of like slowly lowering standards of safety and increasing the like expectations and priority on business interests and profit, because they were hoping to turn the space shuttle program into like this thing where they did, you know, a launch a week. They were getting companies to pay them to take stuff up. Like it was at its core not about exploration. It was about, we're going to turn this into a very profitable business, this
Tourism,
space shuttle. Yeah,
basically.
and eventually probably tourism, yeah.
And I say this, you know, if Elon Musk is listening, I just think that's a really bad idea.
Yeah.
And I just think, you know, when in doubt, don't try and go to space.
Yeah, or like, you know, it's like,
You know?
Good, like to live by.
It
When in
should-
doubt,
So
don't go to space.
Go to space.
it should also be the standard of, and I think the standard with NASA originally, and this is the reason they got to the moon, is that you don't go until every single thing is like absolutely perfect, 100% in place. But then the standard sort of became like, as long as like only a couple of things are off, we'll go.
Like, it seems fine.
like the standard just sort of kept lowering and lowering in a way like this was bound to happen. An accident was going to happen, but you know, the Challenger just happened to be the one.
The one where there's a normal person on it, a
Yeah.
civilian on it, a beloved teacher
Yeah.
who wouldn't have understood all of this. Like even with all her training, surely like she wasn't privy to a decade's worth of slipping standards at NASA.
No, I mean, no one was. I mean, even, Dick Scobie, who had worked with NASA for years from the heyday of when, being an astronaut was like this magical job and they were considered American heroes and NASA was like the greatest thing America produced. Why would they know the corporate interest that was like slowly infiltrating everything? It's really effing sad. So
and if it had just been one of the random normal ones, it would have been like just a line in the news.
Yeah,
by the way, like one of these exploded today, and on our next story.
Honestly, I was thinking about what I know about space now in terms of trips, and I'm like, it's not even in the news now, really. The only news story I can think about of space recently where I've noticed it is when those astronauts got stuck up there for like 6 months or whatever. Remember they were meant to go for a week and then, or was it 2 years or something crazy?
Isn't that the plot of a movie?
Yeah.
Was Matt Damon in any of those movies?
Don't get me started.
That one movie, right?
Yeah, there's
where
only
Matt Damon
one.
is good
There's
and
only
evil.
one.
But that's the only time I can think of even reading about space in the news, and I was like, well, I didn't even know they'd gone up there to begin with because we don't know about space launches or anything anymore.
No, I think there was a Black Mirror episode about space exploration, but other than that, I'm not aware. As stated, I am anti-space.
Yeah.
So it's not on my radar anyway.
I mean, it would have been huge news if the Bezos Amazon dick rocket with Katy Perry and Oprah's best friend inside had exploded. But you don't really. The fact that Krista McAuliffe was a part of it, it was such like an own goal for NASA because they brought her in to get attention and they got the attention. Everyone was watching, mostly children.
Yeah, that's just so devastating.
And
to think
she
about.
died in front of them. Like the whole crew died in front of everyone.
The stakes being so high for everyone, including like financially, didn't mean that the standards weren't really closely adhered to, and it wasn't like we've got to make double, triple, quadruple sure that everything is perfect.
Yeah.
Like, why would you?
Yeah, I feel like that happens when the stakes are so high. Instead of bringing the standards up as well, you're like, high stakes, low standards.
Yeah,
we've got to make it happen because of the high stakes.
Like you don't realize you're doing that, but you are like, I mean, if I was Krista, I would have refused to get back on that thing when they had to hacksaw the bolt in the door. I would have been like, I'm out. Sorry. Like what? That to me would have been a sign. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I don't want to
But
do
then
this.
I guess you're seeing like Dick Scobie being like, yeah, no, everything's good, we're good.
And it's
you'd be
NASA.
like, you'd go, I don't know enough about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to,
That's
listen
the
to
other
the
thing.
experts.
It's NASA.
It's NASA.
You're like at this, like they know space.
They were the most
anyone knows
trusted,
space,
yeah.
It's NASA.
And not even space. Like they were honestly the most trusted government agency. Like it was NASA, and they'd never. These were the first humans to die in space with NASA. Like that had never happened. Like Apollo 13 had happened, but they got them home. NASA knows what they're doing. Also, everyone thought. I mean, I guess they did know what they were doing until they started needing to work with corporate interests, and then the people who knew what they were doing either left or got beaten down with like financial priorities.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I think that I know this is the 80s, which is like shockingly a really long time ago now. I always think it's like 20 years ago, but it's not. This is like sort of one of our big problems today is that you think that something as high up as, say, I don't know, the president of the United States wouldn't be able to lie and get away with it. So you're thinking like, oh, like it's such a big deal that nothing's going to go wrong with NASA or with this huge government body. But actually, like as we're learning, but it wouldn't have been as obvious back then. You would just think NASA doesn't fuck up.
Yeah.
NASA gets people to space, and if, there's trouble in space, they get people back from space.
Yeah. And if something like this happens, it is just like when a plane crash happens, it's like this just unfortunate, like 1 in a billion lottery of events had to happen where a few things go wrong that like it's a 1 in a gazillion chance and those things go wrong and that's why it happens, a terrible accident. But this was so avoidable. Like this was so avoidable.
And like an O-ring is so cheap.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, well,
bit
the
of rubber.
$3 million motor thing that, that broke or something. And, maybe there were questions about, does it really need replacing? It's like, people replace O-rings in their homes every day.
Yeah, they're in people's cars, they're everywhere. Like
on
it's
your
just,
taps.
like
It's
it's
absolutely
just
nuts.
Yeah, it's
Like, why wouldn't you just change them out?
Yeah.
Like, just go
every time.
Yeah.
Every time change them out.
Or
Why
just
not?
wait. If it's cold, just wait.
Yeah.
I feel like someone at some point was like, guys, the vice president is coming. We need to go ahead. It's like the vice president is just a person. He can reschedule.
There was also, I mean, this is crazy. The temperature that it got to that day in the documentary, in all the stuff I read, it's in Fahrenheit because it's the US, but it had reached a certain temperature where they were like, if we call it today and say, we have to delay, we can't launch today because it's this temperature, then that is then the standard we're stuck with and we can never launch when we're at that temperature. So they wanted to avoid setting a precedent as well because they were like, what if it's fine and then we've just like cancelled out a whole bunch of days that we could launch from now on because we're like, well, we delayed that day because it was this temperatures and now, so just things like that. It's like, yeah, but who cares? Who cares?
Yeah. You can do some test ones later, unmanned test ones to check temperature stuff.
Like,
if you
why
really
not
want.
do it unmanned 500 times or 1,000 times before you put people in? Like, that's what they used to do in the old days of
Because
NASA.
the ka-ching, ka-ching.
They sent the dog up. Didn't the Russians send up, what was he called?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
No, wait, it was James. James. Did he go?
Don't you have your
They might
Oh, no, there it
computer
is.
right in front of you?
No, but he knows. Hey, what was the name of the dog that died in space? Laika. Was it Russia or NASA?
It was Russia.
Russia sent Laika into space and like
you.
George Clooney.
As you were.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James. As you were in that movie where George Clooney in Gravity just ends up in space. Laika just got left in space forever. They just put him in this little pod and like he just was going to be in there floating through space until he died.
But we don't know what's out in space. Maybe he's out there dogging around.
Maybe he lived a really happy life.
Maybe there's a special
Looking at
dog
the
planet
stars.
made of cheese and chicken.
Maybe he crashed somewhere and he was able to live and there was an alien dog and
they fell in love.
They fell in love.
And they had alien dog puppies.
I don't know. I don't know why.
sad.
I know we're literally talking about a disaster today where like 7 human people died. But when I think about little Laika getting put into that space pod and shot into space and just left to float in space until he dies, I get really upset.
It's deeply upsetting. Well,
Did they
Laika
give
could
him
not give
treats?
consent.
I know.
Laika didn't
Hopefully
understand.
they would have given him a lot of
I hope he had a lot of treats in there and a lot of chew toys.
Isn't
like a pet brand now.
Yes, that's
did they
why.
name it that?
So that's the thing. So when we got Pocket, I tried Laika food, but he didn't like it, so we stopped getting it. And
didn't
that's
like
what
her.
James said. James was like, why have they called it dog food after the dog that died in space? It's like, because it's a hero
But
dog.
what if he went to space, got like super intelligent, and he's actually the one who runs the business?
Of
his
Laika?
business. Yeah. He
Well-
named it after himself.
Well, he effed up because my dog didn't like it. So,
Well,
yeah.
that wasn't
So,
We got to a weird place.
yeah, how did we end up here? I think we just
Yeah.
needed
We-
to...
we
Subject matter
we
is a
started
lot.
to get upset again. So
Yeah. So then I brought a dead dog into it to make things better. A few weeks, it was about a month after the Challenger disaster happened, there was an episode of the kids' TV show Punky Brewster where they talked about it because kids they were all really upset and no one knew how to talk to them about it. And so they made this special episode of Punky Brewster where she really wants to be an astronaut. She's watching the footage with her classroom. It happens. And then all the other kids are like telling her, you're so dumb for wanting to be an astronaut because look what happens. Like you'll die. And Punky Brewster's like really upset and talking to her dad. And then in the end of the episode, Buzz Aldrin comes to their classroom and like tells them how safe space is and how important space exploration is. And they all get made members of like the kids astronaut club. And so that episode of TV happened.
I can't hear the name Buzz Aldrin without hearing second comes right after first.
Yeah.
Does Buzz Aldrin actually voice his own character?
Oh no, it's a show.
Oh,
He's
do you
in
know
it,
what?
yeah.
Do you know what? When you said Punky Brewster, I'm for some reason imagined The Rascals.
No.
Soleil Moon Frye.
So
Yeah, it's an actual show.
So he was actually in the TV show.
Came on. Buzz Aldrin loves a
To
TV
say
appearance.
that space is safe.
I think it was to make the kids feel better.
Yeah,
it was
okay.
like, this was an accident, but like,
Yeah.
There's like a NASA guy behind him just holding a gun to his back.
So it's fine. So Krista McAuliffe has been honoured in a bunch of different ways over the years. The families of all the Challenger crew organised and made the Challenger Centre for Space Science Education as a permanent memorial to the whole crew. So she's part of that. In 2021, the US Mint designed a dollar coin with her on it. And so that went into circulation. And most recently, in September of 2024, which would have been her 76th birthday, a statue of her was unveiled at the New Hampshire State Capitol. It was sculpted by an artist called Benjamin Victor, and it's the first statue of a woman on the State House grounds there. And inscribed on the side of the statue's pedestal is a quote from McAuliffe, "I touch the future I teach."
Oh, that's lovely. Can I ask you, I don't know if you know this, but was her family compensated and looked after she died?
I wondered that too. I couldn't find anything about any of the families and when it comes to compensation and stuff like that. So
you mentioned
I
her
don't
daughter
know.
Caroline
signed something.
Because you mentioned, because you mentioned her daughter Caroline was like 5 when it happened, so she mustn't be that much older than us now.
Yeah, no, her kids were 6 and 10, so they'd be in their 40s. Yeah, not much older than us at all. I'm not sure. I mean, this is just the gist.
Yeah,
but-
sorry. Yeah, I know. But when you were saying they made a memorial coin, I was like, big whoop.
Yeah.
Yeah, give them the
Yeah.
coins. Give them all the coins.
coins.
I mean, I feel like it's complicated with NASA because there's probably like a lot of privacy and maintaining the reputation and integrity of the thing. And there was also like, in quotes from interviews I've seen with her family, it's very much like she would not have wanted this to impact NASA or to discourage children from
learning
and wanting to go into space, or, you know, girls getting interested in STEM or all that. Like her family very much always straddles that line of like, she, you know, this was tragic, but also this was important to her.
Yeah. Well,
So-
I mean, it is also like famously risky. Like it's not like it was, you know, without risk and this was crazy that this happened. There would have been an acknowledgement that things could go horribly wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Dick Scobie's wife in this Netflix documentary, she says that he very early on made sure that he explained to the 10 finalists, the 10 teachers, how dangerous it was, because he was worried that NASA was basically saying to them, because the space shuttle kind of looks like a plane, and he was worried that NASA had basically said to them, like, it's basically like a plane ride. Like, it's not dangerous at all. Like, you know, do you think we'd let you do it if, you know, it was dangerous? And his
But also
wife...
sign these forms.
Yeah,
that
also
say-
sign these forms. But his wife said he was like, I'm going to explain to all 10 of them that this is dangerous. Like, this is not, you're basically a test pilot. Like anything could go wrong, and
it did.
often does, and you are putting your life at risk doing this. So he did tell those 10 finalists, and he felt like, you know, that was his responsibility because NASA wasn't. So they did know. I mean, he told them, but also if you're not an astronaut, how much could you really know? I would think they're letting me do it. So how dangerous
of
could it
course.
be?
Be fine. They wouldn't let the
Yeah.
whole world watch me die.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Like when I was a little kid, I remember having zero fear about like dodgy rides at the Easter show and stuff, because I was like, well, they wouldn't let me do it if it was dangerous. Like, and then you see on the news, like those slingshots just flying off and people dying and things breaking and like, gosh, it's you don't know what you don't know. And you just go, well, who's going to let me do this if it's dangerous?
Yeah, I had to ban
NASA
myself.
wouldn't.
Yeah,
right?
surely not NASA.
Surely not NASA.
They know about space.
Yeah.
Famously.
Exactly.
I had to ban myself from air crash investigations for that reason. It's
yeah.
always like, oh, someone didn't unscrew the.
It's always the
pinprick-sized
tiniest
It's always
thing.
the tiniest
like
thing
this, a
that
tiny
you
bit
know.
of a tiny tear in a bit of rubber.
Yeah.
just because it was cold. Like it's always the tiniest thing. I don't know, with aircraft, I've never been afraid of flying because I have this attitude of like, once you're on the plane, like, well, if you're going down, you're going down. What are you going to do? What's the point of getting stressed?
Okay.
Well, no, but my sister Rhiannon
I know what you
cannot.
mean.
Yeah, like my sister Rhiannon is deathly afraid of flying, and I don't know.
No, that was like an admiration. Like, okay, I try and tell myself to feel that way, but I'm like, but I want to get off if it's going to go down.
Yeah, but you can't, can you? What are you going to do once you're
But
up
you
there?
can before it goes. And
So don't go. And my sister didn't for years. Literally
Really?
didn't
Yeah.
fly anywhere for years.
I feel like at some point, I don't know if this is true, but I feel like at some point someone said flying is safer than getting in a car. And I just tell myself that. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
statistically,
Yeah.
especially with the way that I drive.
Yeah.
This is why I don't drive.
This is like neither do I. Kate and I just refuse to drive. We're just getting planes all over the place and we're just, but driving, no. But it's like my thing with Qantas. I'm always like, because they've never had a plane crash, I'm like, does that mean that
They
they're
never
the
will.
safest, or does it mean they're due? You know what I'm statistically, you know? I don't know.
I'm not actually afraid of flying. Like, I still fly.
Yeah.
But I don't let myself watch air crash investigations because then it just scares me.
Love air crash.
I know it's really good.
I
but
have never watched a moment of it and I don't intend
it's
to.
the
It does not
best.
sound like my kind of thing.
The one that ended me was when someone had literally left a bit of sticky tape over a small hole that when they were cleaning it, they had to put
And
tape
that's
over it. And
what-
that-
Yep.
Yep.
And everyone
Yep.
died.
Neck minute.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
I was
see,
like, I
no,
can't
It's
watch
always
TV.
something like
I
that.
need to not know.
It's always something like that. Okay, well,
Okay, well, let's end on that note.
Let's not go into
happy
space
flying,
again tomorrow.
everyone. That was just the gist of the Challenger disaster, and also, you know, Kristen McAuliffe, a very brave, lovely lady. It's really sad.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
She sounds amazing and her hair was fabulous.
Her hair was fabulous. Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye. Oh, bye.
Oh.
What an upsetting episode.
Thank you for listening to Just the Gist, a Just the Network production. Executive produced and hosted by me, Rosie Waterland. Produced and edited by James Joseph with additional production support from JTG team Kate Lieber and Hayley Stavely and Acast legends Guy Scott Wilson and Simon McDermott. Looking for breaking news? It drops on the Just the Gist Patreon every Tuesday, along with a whole lot of other bonus audio, video, and behind-the-scenes content, which you can access for just $1, $1 a week by clicking the link in the show notes or searching Just the Gist Podcast on Patreon. Follow Just the Gist on Instagram and TikTok at Just the Gist Podcast, and watch the video version of every episode on our YouTube channel, also at, funnily enough, Just the Gist Podcast. Follow Rosie, that's me, in all of the places at Rosie Waterland. Want to give us a suggestion? Tell Rosie to stop singing so much? Email us at hello@justthegist.com.au. Thank you as always for listening. Now go say something impressive at a dinner party. Bye.